Yo, what's up? It's Ray again, and this is the series, the breakdown for elbow track. So I'm 5'10", a bit heavier guy, 195 pounds right now. Air power has always come kind of harder to me, and through the years, I've viewed halos, elbow tracks, and air flares kind of in the same power movement where your hips generate a lot of power. You have to keep your hips high so you can keep doing multiple. My progression was windmill, elbow, air flare, windmill to get comfortable with the movement. I practiced swipe, elbow, air flare, flare, elbow, air flare before finally being able to do multiple elbow air flares. All right, so let's get into the prerequisites that I think you need for this move. Common one that I always ask people when they're trying to learn is, can you do a halo? Can you do multiple halos? And the answer they typically give me is no. So I'll explain why later on. And then also having a good elbow freeze on both arms. Obviously, you're jumping from one arm to the other. You should be able to hold a balance on both. And then on top of that, having good control of your legs and hips, which means you're able to pike and hold your hips up when you're upside down. I'll give an example of this in a handstand and in an elbow freeze. All right, so we're back on the bouncy floor. I'm gonna go through the exercises and then the progressions of learning this move. I use bouncy floor because I'm heavy and this move destroys your elbows. I've had an elbow infection once from this move. Anyways, let's go into the exercises. So first off, I have this elbow freeze exercise I practiced during COVID. And when I was recovering from my surgery, my left shoulder surgery, this helped me build up strength for the elbow track. It's really simple. It's just a 2-arm elbow freeze. But the most important thing is having full shoulder extension so you're straight through. And then moving to your right arm and putting all the weight there. Going back and being able to do that on the left side as well. Ooh. That's the best you're gonna get today. Practicing that will help you understand how to transfer weight between your shoulders. And the reason I mentioned elbow extension is you want to be on top of your shoulders when you're throwing this move. You don't want to be down like here in the front. I see some people try to throw it and then they're just way too low in terms of their body and they just throw themselves straight into the ground and their hips are not high. So it's very important that you stay on top of yourself. It's like an air flare. You're on your hands and your elbows. Next up is the hip hinge. I have exercises to learn that. For me, what really helped was doing deadlifts and squats. And then you can also do L-sits. I'm personally worse at L-sits for whatever reason. I also had some injuries that might have attributed to that. Weightlifting for me helped me understand the hip hinge a lot more. And that's important for keeping your core tight when you're about to throw the elbow track. Last but not least, obviously, you do need some flexibility. So you can stretch your hips, you can do everything you want. But for me, the most important thing is being able to pancake. And so I can't even pancake super well, but I think you need to be able to have a degree of flexibility of being able to pike and keep your legs in and on top of you. Otherwise, you're just not gonna be able to land and do multiple easily. And personally, I don't like doing the trick ones. They just don't really make sense to me. And I just like doing it more clean. But if you're gonna learn it right, you can do it the right way and then learn the trick one. I always find it easy to learn the good technique and then learn trick technique later. So now I'm gonna talk about the conceptual hip movements. This is probably one of the weirdest things to understand for this move and just takes a long time to get beat into your body. But basically the reason I say a prerequisite is a halo is if you think about doing a halo, you're doing a icy ice where you should be and you're keeping your core tight. And then when you push, you kind of are bouncing with your hips and then you spin. And when you land again, you reset in that same position. And that lets you set up for a second one. The same concept is there for like elbow air flares and air flares. There is a degree of like stalling on your arm as you whip your hips and momentum around before you pop up and then you reset. Usually if you can't do like multiple halos, like 2 good ones in a row, you're gonna unflex midair. You're gonna injure yourself, you're gonna strain your back. You're just not gonna be able to land a second one or continue into multiple. So you're gonna have to build up strength doing like the elbow exercise. You're gonna have to understand like how to whip your legs. With a halo, there's just so much going on in this move that it's easy to always feel like you're doing it wrong. Even in the beginning, when I'm learning the leg movement, I would practice against a wall. And this is like for air flares or air flares. I would practice this swing. That doesn't really help you learn how to engage your core, but this is a prerequisite to just get comfortable doing this swing and pushing off and landing on the other side. So I would really practice that, get comfortable with that, get comfortable with your halos, and then we're gonna go into the progressions of this move. So now we're gonna get into progressions. We're gonna go in order. One thing to note is I think I was always good at like rollback elbow freeze. I do think it would be good if you worked on your rollback elbows. Just to understand that hip pop. The first thing was doing headstand to elbow track. And I don't know if that's asking too much for a tutorial or a progression, but that is what I did. So I would get into a headstand and I go clockwise. So I put my right elbow down. And what I would do is I would whip it and try to get comfortable throwing that move. You want to start on your head and you want to stay on top of your shoulder and pop up. I feel like that's asking for a lot. You really want to just get comfortable understanding that whip. This is as far as you can go. That's completely fine. Just understanding how to whip your legs around and then put your weight onto your elbow. This is a much harder move. It's probably like one of the higher tier moves for foundation before you get to the crazy stuff, which even I can't do. But next would be windmill elbow track. So this helped me understand how to get around, how to keep my hips kind of high. And the idea is like you're doing windmill, headstand, elbow track. So that's why the headstand to elbow track progression is important. So you'll notice like when I threw that, I landed really low. I did that intentionally. The idea is like you want to get comfortable just throwing it and landing over. Like the more comfortable you get throwing the elbow track, that's perfectly fine as well. Then we can fine tune the details of how to get your hips higher and do multiple. At this point, like you're just gonna practice those two things, you get more comfortable. You wanna keep your core really tight, keep it flexed the entire time when you pike your legs. When you pike for the throw, you wanna keep it piked in and try to like bring your legs in. That might be kind of hard to understand unless you try it. If you're throwing your elbow track low, it means you need to pop up higher on top of your arms. So that's kind of what I was talking about earlier with the shoulder extension being straight through. The lower you are, the less room you have to throw your elbow track. So if I'm down here, it's low. But if I'm straight up here, it's higher. Now, when you're trying to do multiple, it's kind of like when you're doing a halo. If you reset and your legs are in the right spot, your hips are in the right spot, you're gonna lose momentum, you're gonna drop more and more. The important thing is to get a clean one, you get a clean second one. Eventually, it's more about how tired you are, if your technique is good. That's kind of how I view all my power. It's just, I can keep doing it until I get tired or fatigued, because the technique is all you need to maintain the shape and form. For me, what helps learning multiple elbow tracks is doing windmill into elbow track and trying to continue it. And you'll notice that some people bend their leg when they do the elbow track. I personally think that's completely fine, because what you'll notice when you bend your leg in, it keeps your hips on top of yourself. So this is completely fine. If your hips are out here, that's bad. The idea is like you want to stay on top of yourself. I'm going to try to give an example of this by doing windmill, the multiple elbow tracks. If I get tired, I'm going to bend my leg in. But the most important thing is that when I swing, I'm on top of myself, on top of my shoulder, and then my hips are coming in. So I'll try to keep it straight. If I can't, it's gonna bend, but it doesn't matter, because when I land and reset, I'm gonna be in the position for doing multiple. Remember, we're focusing on staying high on our shoulders, pushing through. We're focusing on our core, our pike. We're throwing over, and when we throw over, we're focused on keeping our legs piked, our core tight. And when we reset, we're gonna try for another. And if we get fatigued, it's fine to keep one leg bent as long as your hips stay on top of yourself. Okay, so I've demonstrated it. I hope you can see how by bending my leg, keeping my core tight, I could keep my hips on top of myself. And one thing I wanted to know is I actually learned elbow 1.5 before I learned how to do multiple elbow tracks well. And that's really learning from the headstand to the elbow air flare how to really pop off my right arm. I'm not gonna go into how to commit for this move, but I'm just gonna demonstrate how I do it. All right, so that's my breakdown of elbow air flares, elbow tracks, whatever you want to call it. I had a left shoulder surgery last year and a left hip surgery, so there's no excuses. If I can do it, you can do it. Happy practicing. Peace.